We're going to start with the lesson today. Today is October the 2nd, 2022. We're going to be continuing with the book of Daniel. This is going to be the penultimate or the next to the last lesson. It's going to be Daniel chapter 11 from verses 36 to 45. Let's start with the prayer, word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you once more to let us to come here as we do every Sunday, dear Lord, to share the word with people that need to hear the word. And thank you for giving us your godly wisdom. Give us the strength, dear Lord, to articulate the word properly so everybody will understand. Thank you, Lord, for your help on a daily basis. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. So I'm going to read a text, Daniel chapter 11, starting verse 36. The title of the lesson is The King Who Exalts Himself. Verse 36. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed. What has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women. Nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people, and will distribute the land at a price. At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade a beautiful land. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control over the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and Cushites in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many people. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. Amen. Okay, in this lesson, which is next to the last lesson, the next lesson will be chapter 12, which will be the end of the book of Daniel. This lesson talks about Antiochus Epiphanes, but also talks about the Antichrist. So commentators are kind of divided between which is which and what pertains to whom. So the best thing I can say is that they talk about both and at the same time. And we must discern that what happens to Antiochus Epiphanes is also going to happen to the Antichrist, or the Antichrist is going to do similar things. So to start this, I would say this section gives the details of Antiochus, which is a form of Antichrist, final exploits. To some refer the section entirely to Antiochus, the scope also requires reference to some details of Israel that days. From here to the end of chapter 11, the Antichrist is in view. So as we go through this lesson, which is next to the last lesson, you're going to see that the Antichrist, which is at the end of the time, and Antiochus Epiphanes, which is more or less at the end of the Old Testament, are very similar in what they do and what the Antichrist is going to do. So let's start with verse 36. Hi, Wanda. I'm going to start reading verse 36, which is the first verse of the lesson. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. So here he's talking about the king that we've been talking about throughout chapter 11 and through the book of Daniel, but also refers to the Antichrist. So whatever the Antiochus is going to do or has done, the Antichrist is going to do in a magnified way. So they're talking about both. The commentators are divided in which both are going to be in view. So the first verse is the king will do what he pleases. Of course, talks about the Antiochus. He says, many ancient and modern interpreters have concluded that at this point, a new person, the Antichrist, is introduced. The king is distinguished from the king of the north, though primarily Antiochus is antitypical and mainly Antichrist. So when they're talking about the king of the north, it could be Antiochus, but it also refers to the Antichrist. So keep that in mind, that whatever happens to Antiochus Epiphanes, that's going to happen also to the Antichrist. So the Antichrist is going to do the same thing. So the king showed himself acting arbitrarily by his thoughts and deeds, not only about the hidden deities, but about the true God. Though we are referring to the northern king, you must remember that the features of Antiochus are gradually fading away from the scene. So here, the Antiochus, the king of the north, is going to fade away from the picture. Antiochus' main object was to Hellenize the Jewish religion and to force the Greek gods upon the Jews. The character of the king here, on the contrary, finds parallel in Paul's description of the Antichrist. So, what was the point of Antiochus at that time? Antiochus wanted to force the Greek gods upon the Jewish people. That's what he wanted to do. In fact, he dedicated a temple to Zeus or Jupiter. Zeus is the name of the Greeks. Jupiter is the name of the Romans. The same god. And so that's what he wanted to do. The Antichrist is going to do something else. He's going to exalt himself above other things. So the second verse is, he will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. That's going to do Antiochus, and that's going to do the Antichrist. Both of them are going to do that. Antiochus will plunder almost all the temples of the gods which he came near, and shall speak boasting and reproachful words against the true God. That is, these utterances and blasphemies against the true God will be outstanding. That's what this king is going to do. That's what the Antichrist is going to do. So this lesson talks about both persons, Antiochus and the Antichrist. When we're going to go into the book of Revelation, you're going to see how the Antichrist is revealed in the book of Daniel. The next verse is, he will be successful until the time of wrath is completed. So he have a lot of success until God determines that he should stop. This type of Antichrist will continue long and prevail until the wrath of God, namely, for the sins of the people, is subsided, until God sees fit to put a stop to those punishments with his wisdom and justice. This will continue until God's indignation against his people is accomplished. The last verse of this first paragraph is, for what has been determined must take place. The period of time that this evil shall last is fixed by divine providence, and it shall not be prevented, nor put an end until that time. Many of the things that follow may be applied by way of accommodation to Antichrist, which Antiochus was the eminent type, but they principally refer to Antiochus himself. So again, they're talking about both. So you got to make a comparison for both. Let's go to the next verse. Wanda, can you please read verse 37?
He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, or for the one desired by mind, nor will he regard his God, but will exalt himself above them all.
Thank you. Gentlemen, welcome. We are in verse 37. So here, this guy, he would not care about the God of the ancestors, of his ancestors, even though the God of his ancestors, praise the God of Israel, he would not do that. And also he would not be concerned with what the women want. Women want certain things. He would not care about what women want. Okay? He was very different to that. And he will exalt himself after all. So the first verse is that he will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors. It refers to the God of gods worshipped in his own native country, Syria. He made laws to abolish religion in his country and to bring in the idols of the Greeks. And though his predecessors had honored the God of Israel and given great gifts to the temple of Jerusalem, he did the greatest indignities to God and his temple. Or for the one desired by women, he has no regard to that natural affection which women look upon as more desirable. The language used has led some commentators to think that an idol here is intended. The context, however, leads us rather to think of human affection or some other highly prized by women. So the interpretation of this is that taking either as a female goddess or the desire of every Jewish woman to be the mother of the Messiah. So what was the desire of a Jewish woman? Okay, the greatest desire was that she wanted to be the mother of the Messiah. That was the thing that they wanted the most. But this guy, this king, we had no desire. I mean, will be indifferent to what women want. So he was indifferent to everything. He was only concerned about himself. Nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. He will show no regard for any god, either a true God and his laws, or any god in a metaphorical sense, any king or potentate on earth, showing no respect to any authority or to any laws, divine or human. He will magnify himself above all gods, real or nominal. So let's go to the next verse. Nico, verse 38.
Instead of them, he will honor a god or fortress, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts.
See, like many dictators, his God is a God of force. When you are powerful, more or less in this world, you can do whatever you want. And you can see how the wars that we had throughout the centuries is because one power, one nation, wanted to invade another nation because they were just stronger. Okay? Just look at the 20th century. The God of the leader of Germany, which was Hitler, was very powerful. And because he was very powerful, he invaded another countries. Look at Saddam Hussein. He was very powerful. Because he was very powerful, he invaded Kuwait. Okay? So if there is nobody to stop them, they're going to do whatever they want. In today's environment, Russia, just because he was strong, invaded Ukraine. And good thing that they got that war condemnation. And it's not going to spread around like it was in World War II. Not too many people are going to ally themselves to Russia. They're not going to do it. In fact, they're calling more people from the reserve, and Russians are leaving Russia, going to another country, because they don't want. I mean, it's not the same as it was before. Nobody now is powerful enough to invade another country and get away with it. Okay? Putin cannot threaten anybody with nuclear weapons, because a lot of countries have nuclear weapons. So if they start dropping nuclear weapons, Russia will be a parking lot. You know? So, but in the old days, there was only one empire, like Assyria, Babylonians. Nobody could oppose them. Okay? Only they got destroyed from within many times. So, in verse 38 says, this type of Antichrist God will not regard any God except the God of military power and activity. In the place of the God whom he has rejected, he will worship the God of fortresses, which he will honor with gold and silver. In this context, we concede to him that war is everything, and to war everything else must give way. To war, as if he were a god, he does honor with all his wealth. This is to signify that the costly ornaments with which the heathen adorn their idols. Also, we know too well that the Roman people, or the Romanists, adorn their churches and shrines of the patrons and so-called saints. Let's go to verse 39. Romain?
He will attack the mightiest fortress with the help of the foreign God, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the land at a price.
Okay, so he will exercise his army attacking other people. The Temple of Jerusalem can identify as a fortress, as some other fortresses of munitions, protections, placing a strange god over there. Some read it that he shall commit the city of Jerusalem to a strange god, or he shall put it under protection of Jupiter or Zeus. Zeus is the god of the Greeks, and Jupiter is the same god but called Jupiter, but by the Romans. This God he shall not only acknowledge, but shall increase with glory, setting his own image even upon the God's altar, and forcing everybody else to worship this idol. He will greatly honor those who acknowledge him, perhaps also in particular to renegade Jews who have been thus rewarded for their apostasy, giving them posts as governors and grant them estates, seized probably from their rightful owners for a bribe. The distribution of the land was done evidently as a reward to those who joined his ranks. So he has no regard for any gods, and he just pushes his way into an invasion and defeat everybody else. Okay, so let's go to verse 40. Wanda.
At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage with him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He'll invade many
So for the last few chapters, we've been covering this kingdom of the north, kingdom of the south. Okay, kingdom of the south is Egypt, kingdom of the north is Syria, Ptolemy, kingdom of the south, and Epiphanes, kingdom of the north. And this is going to continue. It might continue in this. But also it refers to the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to have forces invade Israel and like that. So this lesson, which is next to the last lesson, speaks about both the king of Antiochus and of the Antichrist at the end of the time. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so it says the king of the south, through all this prophecy, appears evidently to signify the king of Egypt. And if it be so to interpret here, he must relate to some new contest between him and Antiochus. Historians, however, make no mention of this or any third expedition of Antiochus into Egypt. The portrait of Antiochus was gradually fading away, and now not a line of it remains. No such invasion of Egypt as that is mentioned here or mentioned in secular history. However, the lack of knowledge concerning this translation, referring to Antiochus, has been considered by some as an additional reason for applying the whole paragraph to the Antichrist, and a great apostasy of the Middle Ages of the Christian church. So they're talking about both. Some commentators said about Antiochus, other commentators said about the Antichrist at the end of time. Okay, so we're talking about both. Of course, when we go to the book of Revelation, everything is going to click because we're going to refer back to the book of Daniel. Verse 41. Wanda?
He will also invade the beautiful land, many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand.
Okay, so the beautiful land is referred to Judea, the land of Israel. And as he, in his way going to Egypt, he escaped all the countries which are natural enemies of Israel. So it was surprising that this did not get invaded. He says here, on the occasion of this hasty march against Egypt, while passing through the beautiful land, the land of Judea, the king takes the shortest route, avoiding the three tribes, Edom, Moab, and Ammon, which has been distinguished by their hostility towards the people of Israel. It is remarkable that these nations, two of which appear as figures of Antichrist, should escape, while other nations fell. It's also noteworthy that these tribes are called nations, for after the return from the exile, it appears that they cease to have any distinct national existence. So they were tribes, now are called nations. Okay, so it's surprising that they do that. Okay. So verse 42, Nico?
He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape.
Okay, this applies to this king, also applies to the Antichrist. He seizes various countries through which he passes, among them Egypt. Is especially selected, representing as he does the most powerful of them all. The king has at last attained his object. He has frequently been partially successful in this attempt, and now Egypt is completely overthrown. Verse 43, Romain.
He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and Cushites in submission.
Of course, Egypt is the biggest country, and they have all the arts and jewels and riches and everything. So to capture Egypt was a high price indeed. And the other countries, which is they mentioned here, are very much related to Egypt. They are lesser countries. So if you capture Egypt, you're going to capture the other countries too. The land of Egypt, with all his treasures of gold and silver, the public buildings, the contents of the royal palace, the works of art, the monuments, books, and implements of war, would of course be at the disposal of the conqueror. Having seized among the most important places in Egypt and having possession of the person of the king, he will return to his land laden with spoils. The word Libyans in the Hebrew scriptures is everywhere joined with Egyptians and Ethiopians. They are supposed to have been a people of Egyptian origin, and their country bordered on Egypt in the west. A conquest of Egypt was almost in itself a conquest of Libya. These two countries either march with him or follow him, and the phrase will be applicable either to those who were allies or who were led captive. The more probable idea would be that we're allies. So they joined the king of the north to invade Egypt. And then we have verse 44. Wanda?
But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many.
Okay, so when he was in Egypt, he hears disturbing news from the north. that they're going to invade him, and the renegade Jews are going to go back to their country of Israel. Now, he had left some people in Israel, like his headquarters. Okay? So this news that they're going to invade, he goes into a rage, and that is going to send a army there to fight those people, but that's not going to happen. He says here, while in Egypt, he has a bad news brought to him from the north and from the east, which stirs up feelings of revenge. Historians relate to the Parthians on the east and the Armenians on the north. The dispersed Israelites carried captive in the north, also called the kings of the east. All these declared war against Antiochus about the same time. Therefore, hearing the Jews were preparing to return to their own country, or that they have gotten possession of it, he will be provoked to a high degree and raise a prodigious army and march out of his land to Judea. I'm going to read the last verse, which is 45. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas and the wonderful and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. So Judea is situated between the two seas, the Mediterranean and the Dead Sea, which are his boundaries on each side. So the meaning of this sentence is that Antiochus should place his royal tents or headquarters in Judea, leaving there some of his principal generals or officers, who should by his command keep at the tomb of majesty, and he himself will present. After he does that, he goes to Egypt. The beautiful holy mountain refers to Mount Zion, the site of the temple, the desolation of the sanctuary of Antiochus, and also the desecration of the consecrated ground around Jerusalem by the idolatrous Roman insigns, and also by the Muslim mosque, and finally by the last Antichrist, since they are all referred to. So the last Antichrist is to sit upon the mount of the congregation, but shall be brought down to hell. So the Temple Mounts, it was first the Temple of Solomon, then it was the Temple of Zerubbabel, then it was desecrated by other people, by the Romans, and then now it's going to be it's a mosque now. It's a mosque. So, but at the end, the fight, the Armageddon is going to be there, the final battle. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. We know from the book of Maccabees that Antiochus, on hearing of the success of the Maccabean princes, went into Persia on a plundering expedition, leaving an army in Judea. This army that was left in Judea was defeated, and the news was brought to him while he was in Egypt. It was in Persia. So appalling was the effect upon him of this news that he fell sick of grief and died. So he died 147 before Christ. So God cut him off in the midst of his days, and none shall be able to prevent his fall. This is the same what is foretold in Daniel 8:25. So when God's time has come to bring proud oppressors to their end, none shall be able nor perhaps inclined to help them. For those who, when they are in their grandeur, covered to be feared by all, will find when they come in distress that they are loved by none. None will lend them so much a hand or a prayer to help them. For if the Lord does not help, who will? Of the kings that came after Antiochus, nothing is here prophesied, for he was the most malicious, mischievous enemy to the church. As a confirmation of this prophecy, we might add that Antiochus was one of the most manifest and most expressive figures of Antichrist, and that these things which the angel foretold of Antiochus will receive a further accomplishment before the end of the world. So, at the time appointed by God, when the Antichrist has arrived at the height of his power and authority, and when God decides to put an end to the miseries of the Jews, the end will come, referring to the period just before the return of Christ at the beautiful holy mountain, which is Jerusalem Temple Mount, perhaps in connection with the Battle of Armageddon at the hands of the victorious returning Christ. So this lesson talks about the end of this king, which is Antiochus Epiphanes, and also the end of the Antichrist. So this last lesson talks about both. Okay? So what happens to one is going to happen to the other one. That's what the book of Daniel and book of Revelation are so much related. And when we're going to start the book of Revelation, we're going to go back to the book of Daniel. Okay? It's not an easy thing to distinguish which is which, but it doesn't matter. Prophecy is prophecy. And the book of Daniel is a book of prophecy. Okay? Do you guys have any questions before we... Yes, ma'am.
So the second Antichrist will come before or after the rapture?
The Antichrist will come after the rapture. we as a church will be raptured. We will not see the Antichrist. We're not supposed to look for the Antichrist. We're supposed to look for Christ. Okay? Christ will return. The second coming of Christ will consist of two events. The first event is a rapture. The second event is a return of him proper, physically. Okay? The rapture, we're going to be taken away. And then who's going to be left in this world? Unbelievers. So then it will be so easy for the Antichrist to rise and throne because nobody believes in God. But during that period of that tribulation, people will hear the gospel. And some people will convert at the price of their life. Okay? And some people will be a lot harder. All right? But yes, in answer to your question, the rapture will be first, the Antichrist will be second, of course. So, but people speculate to say, oh, throughout the centuries, people have said, well, this guy is the Antichrist. Yeah, Hitler was the Antichrist. Anwar Sadat was the Antichrist. Henry Kissinger was the Antichrist. So a lot of people, they like to this publicity. Anything else, guys?
No, I think the Pope too.
The Pope, the Pope can be anti. Yeah, in fact, why not? He's. What's leading to is that the end result is going to be that all religions are going to be one, okay, and all nations are going to be one, because with the computer now it's totally possible, it's incredible, sometimes now that you apply for a job, everything is through computerized, you don't go and do. I remember going to a gym a couple of years ago to sign up for a gym, and they gave me a computer so I can sign everything, nothing on paper. So computerized is done for everything. We have a ministry in which we send some money to another country, and I go like every 3 months to withdraw a certain amount of money at Wells Fargo. That's the only time that I go there to withdraw money. And then before I put my card, you already know how much I'm going to withdraw. So without me doing anything, I get the money without even asking, because they already know me and my habits. So they know everything about you almost. Okay? Anyway, okay, so let's finish this with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to be here one more time, to share your word, dear Lord, and to expound the book of Daniel in the next to the last lesson, dear Lord. We're grateful that you have given us the ability to study the book of Daniel the best we could on a weekly basis. And next week we're going to have the last lesson, the book of Daniel. Thank you, Lord, and let the rest of the day be a blessed day, and also the rest of the week. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Okay, let me finish with this.